Hi everybody, welcome to D10tion, where we pretend to know what we're talking about D&D. I am your host, Tristan. Oh gosh, why are you hitting me with that hammer? Please stop hitting me with that hammer. To my left, I have Sam, who is also very much, please stop stabbing me. Oh god, she won't stop. Oh god, please, there's blood everywhere. And Brandon, I am God, I have all the power in this universe as DM.
Yeah.
You're not wrong.
And today we're going to continue our theme of building characters, but we're going to get a little bit more specific. We're going to talk about classes, and more specifically, a single class at a time. And we're going to start with my favorite, Barbarian.
The dreaded Barbarian.
Also known as the giant meathead of the party,
Also known as Hulk Smash.
Yeah. Get him.
Hulk Smash, the raging behemoth.
Yeah, generally the rough and tough, the grizzled, the brawn over the brawn over the brawn, and then maybe a tiny brain of the party.
Right, the tank with arms.
Exactly. The fleshy tank.
The fleshy tank. Oh gosh, now I'm just picturing a tank made of flesh.
A fleshy tank that
shoots fists.
that survives on alcohol. I mean, isn't that a barbarian? Is that not what you imagine when you imagine a barbarian going to battle?
Well, depends how you play it. So to kind of help us as we go through, trying to help talk about barbarians in general, we're gonna go through kind of what we did when we did the character creation thing a couple episodes ago, and we're gonna start to try and make a barbarian just to help us as we progress through everything. Because there's gonna be some parts of the barbarians that have similarities, like they all get like primal instinct and stuff like that. But then you start getting into the subclasses or the primal paths. And stuff like that, which we'll go more in depth with, but we're just going to keep it so that we're continuing in the direction that you'll tend to be going in.
And Barbarian is the best, or one of the better starter classes if you want to learn the mechanics of Dungeons and Dragons.
Absolutely, because I mean, Barbarian is pretty much point and hit,
and
versus like if you start doing other things, even something like Rogue is up there as well as being fairly simple. But once you start getting into like spell casting, I mean, people usually jump into like D&D, like I want to be a spellcaster. Like first off, which one? And then you start running into like, okay, these are how spells work. And then
which domain would you like to pick, depending on which class you pick, which then limits your spells and gives you different spells. And
right.
There's preparing and not preparing.
So if you just want to keep it simple, stupid, Barbarian's probably the way to go.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So let's start with our Barbarian. Again, barbarians are pretty much, the point and hit of a party. They can be just about any race. I mean, because, again, they're
You can make any class, any race. Barbarians are pretty simple on... you can be a little more diverse with them because they don't have more niche, needs to make a full-fledged character. Your big things, though, for a barbarian are going to be constitution and strength. Take hits and give them back.
Right.
So generally, you'd want to pick
a race that tends to have a plus to one of those. So you're not going to want to go like, oh, I'll be a halfling barbarian. You can be. It just won't be very helpful.
Most people, when they try and go on the short and stout, they normally go dwarf.
Dwarf for barbarian, yes. Yeah. So we're going to create our wonderful barbarian to help us go through. I think we should go with let's start with human, because first off, I don't think any of us have played a human, and you may.
I played tons of humans. When I was a barbarian, I've never done a human barbarian because I'm always like.
We will make.
I always go orc.
A human barbarian.
Yay!
All right.
And before the record, what is the name of our human barbarian?
Dave
the Barbarian.
Dave the Barbarian.
Which language?
What?
Which language should we have him speak?
Common.
He knows common. Let's have him do giant.
Giant? All right.
He's a human who strives to be as strong as giants and
There
learn
we
their
go.
languages.
Barbarian. So.
All right, so starting off at a level 1, what are we looking at?
So, starting off at level 1, just some background knowledge. For hit dice, you get 1d12 per barbarian level, which I believe barbarians have one of the highest hit dice.
You're the only ones that use a d12, right?
The d12,
yep. Yeah. At your hit points, the first level are 12 plus your constitution modifier. And for every level, you basically add 1d12 plus your constitution modifier after that. So they also wind up usually having the highest number of hit points.
They should. If your DM makes you... Sometimes you don't have to roll. You can go with the average if you just want to pretty streamline. So their average is about 7. plus the Constitution modifier. But generally, unless all of your rolls to gain health are a 1, and the rest of your party rolls max, you should be the top of the health list. You should be that sponge that just eats damage.
Right. And of course, this is where D&D Beyond comes into great help as far as doing all that for you for the most part.
Yeah, D&D Beyond is really great, especially if you're just starting out building a character. They like to break it down into little sections, make it really nice for you.
Which is what we're building this character on.
Exactly. So the next section is proficiencies. So you're automatically proficient with light armor, medium armor, and shields. Although as a barbarian, you don't usually...
You have natural armor.
You have unarmored defense, which gives you the ability to use your dexterity and your constitution modifier if you don't wear armor. But the reason why they give you that proficiency is... if you don't put your dex that high, or if you're a dwarf, the Battle Ranger dwarf subclass, which we'll get to, dwarf, you can use armor.
Gotcha.
And that's their thing, is they rely on that.
You're also proficient with simple and martial weapons.
Sticks, swords.
Yes, clubs. Your saving throws, like you said, strength, constitution, so you're going to want to make those your highest stats. And you can choose any two from animal handling, athletics, intimidation, nature, perception, and survival. So
most people go with intimidation and perception.
Right.
So they can see danger and then scare it.
Right, and in Barbarians, there's something to be said that we'll probably have a whole episode on stereotypes in general.
Oh yeah, for sure.
At some point, people I think fall into the Barbarian stereotype pretty easily by doing the intimidation.
The Unga Dunga Smash.
You don't see Grog.
for example, I think for Sorn,
I have animal handling and perception.
no animal handling for a fact was one of yours. Yeah.
No, with athletics and animal handling.
Pet the pony.
Yeah.
Or survival. I don't remember anymore.
And then kill the pony.
Pet the pony.
So what are we doing for this?
Let's see. For Dave, let's do...
I want to do... For my pick, I want athletics.
You want
Okay.
athletics?
Because my Dave the Barbarian is super athletic.
And
not
what
very
about
smart.
you?
Let's do... Let's see. He's trying to be a giant. So let's go with the stereotype of intimidation.
Intimidation. All right. So at your first level, you also get your rage, which means you can enter rage as a bonus action.
Now, rage is
like
the
to
big
rage.
thing. Where each one is has something specific to them. For barbarians, it is rage. And
The
rage
bread and
is,
butter.
Yes, the bread and butter, what they do. You know, where with Critical Role, there's the whole coin term of I would like to rage.
I would like to rage.
And it's when a barbarian activates a rage moment. It's usually it can be done by a word. It can be done by emotion.
Done by just by yelling.
Right, or they hit themselves or something. And with that, they enter a state of rage.
Which gives them certain abilities, depending on what subclass they pick. But the basics, is you add damage based on... Come on, Barbarian. What do you add damage based on?
Strength?
Your level.
Oh.
Using strength.
Yes.
Yes. Damage melee weapon attacks using strength get added every level.
That's what it is.
You also get advantage on strength checks and strength saving throws, which can be nice sometimes.
And you take less damage
Right.
on non-magical slashing, piercing, and bludgeoning weapons. So pretty much early game, if having a barbarian be like, push him to the front and be like, go get stabbed a lot. We're back here.
Absorb the damage for us, yeah. The downsides are if you have any spells that you can cast, if you have to concentrate on them, you can't because you are too busy raging. So, no concentration.
Your brain's just a really hulked out hamster on a wheel. Just can't really pick up a book.
So that's kind of your basic first level barbarian. I think for the sake of this barbarian, let's go up to level 5. Kind of see what we can throw on there.
So being and we talked about the unarmored defense. When you're not wearing armor, you can get your armor class equals 10 plus Dex plus Constitution. So that if you build your character right, which there's no wrong way to really build a character unless you're actively trying to have your party lose, your AC should be fairly high because you get 2 modifiers, plus if you use a shield, the guaranteed +2 from your shield.
Right.
So your AC should be pretty high later. Mid to late game should be fairly high, especially if you get any enchanted things or anything that gives you that bonus. But on raw talent alone, you should be pretty good.
Right.
So then we bump from a humble Dave, humbly at a barbarian, just getting mad that his... I'm going to imagine that his wife left him and now he's just a vagabond in the mountain range, just walking around.
She says I wasn't giant enough.
Exactly. So
I don't know what she meant, though.
So now our Dave, the humble barbarian, has been wandering around the woods long enough to level up to level 2.
And that's where he gets a reckless attack.
Which you never use.
I never use, because of course that's mainly due to character. Because what does reckless attack do, Sam?
So reckless attack, starting at 2nd level, you basically are like, you know what? I'm just going to all out on this attack. And on your first attack on your turn, you can basically give advantage on your melee weapon rolls using your strength. But any attack rolls against you have advantage until your next turn.
Which is all attacks.
So you get advantage, but so does anybody who's attacking you.
So generally, if you're the barbarian in the middle of a group of 3 people, and you hit one person, even though you hit with advantage and hopefully critical, and hopefully took care of one, then still 2 other people are like, they're wide open. Ah!
Yeah. And that's mainly why I don't use it. So you have reckless attack where you can choose to be, because again, this is where you see a lot of the stereotype where the barbarian hops in, just blindly, no care about his own self, just...
I had to equate this to... because I always like to say people when they rage, they Super Saiyan it. I'd equivalent. Yeah, that's the right word. My own brain. I'd pretty much say it was like Broly and Dragon Ball Z. He's just the big meathead. He's like, Broly smash!
I always think of it as Leroy Jenkins.
Leroy, that's also a good one.
Leroy Jenkins!
And that's pretty much what barbarians also do, is they just, ha-ha!
So along with reckless attack, they also get danger sense at
Spidey
level
sense.
2. Yes, essentially.
Yeah.
Now that's when you get, advantage on all dex saves as long as you can see them and you're not blinded.
Yes,
So
as long as you're not
traps,
blinded, deafened, and
spells.
incapacitated.
Yeah, any sort of dex saving throws that you can see, you
Which you
have
forget about
advantage.
sometimes.
Yeah.
On occasion, yes.
Yeah.
There's been times like, he only rolled once. But that's not my problem.
Gets to a point where your DM's just like, I'm just going to stop telling you.
You should know your character. I know, but do you know?
And more recently, we've been doing, with the last session we had, it was wisdom saves. It was that was all I was focused on.
Those dang wisdom saves.
They're the
Right.
best.
So Dave has been wandering around for a while, recklessly attacking kobolds and goblins
trees.
and trees. He's been expertly dodging traps
And rocks and other kobolds and trees.
So he has come to the part where he's leveled up to level 3, to which it comes the very big decision of his life, his primal path.
Bum, bum, bum.
Now this is where you get to kind of pick the direction that you're taking your barbarian. And there's the classic ones, and then there's of course more with, I guess, more books come out and stuff like that. As far as like what we have available to us, there's
We have the Ancestral Guardians, the Battle Rager, the Berserker, the Storm Herald, the Totem Warrior, and the Zealot.
now to begin with, you said the Battle Rager is specifically only for dwarves.
Yes, that's
Dwarf only.
Now that's where you're going to run into certain things, whether it's class stuff, feat stuff, and things like that, are more specific for specific races. So there are things to be mindful with that. But of course, as always, you can always talk to your DM. Let's say that you really like Battle Rager. Maybe talk to your DM about maybe part of my backstory is I was raised by dwarves. Or something along the lines of that. But that's, again, where you really want to talk to your DM. So let's kind of go down the list as far as these goes.
We won't get super in-depth with these, but
Right.
we can give some flavor to them. You can always check these out. They're on, I guarantee you can find them online to a breakdown of them and the levels and everything. But if you have D&D Beyond, they're on there. You can just look at them. So, the Ancestral Guardian.
Now that is when you rage, outbursting from you are several generations of your family or your lineage in an astral form, there to either help protect or to help attack.
Yep.
And then, of course, that's as you continue to level up. This is your rage, the primal path that you choose evolves with you as a character as you grow, where you start to gain more abilities or they get stronger and things like that. So with the Ancestral Guardian, that's where you'll start to see them start off with defending, get stronger, or strong enough to start attacking.
You can talk to them.
You can talk to them and stuff like that. And again, a lot of this will come with how you want to have your character's story. If you have no reason why you have some of these, your DM might push you to do a little bit more.
We need to sit down and make a reason why you have this, or it doesn't make sense, so you need to pick something that fixes it. It depends on your DM, but
right. They might just let you go do whatever if they're more focused on combat versus story. Yeah. So Ancestral Guardian is Ancestral Guardians.
And basically the perk of each of these is a little different. So with Ancestral Guardians, the first creature that you hit with an attack after you rage, basically they have disadvantage on any attack roll that isn't specifically against you. So if you go into a rage and hit somebody and they go to attack somebody else, they're at a disadvantage because your Ancestral Guardians are there basically. So that's kind of the perk of that one.
It's like the worst episode of Casper.
Yeah.
All right, so what's next? We have, after Ancestral Guardians, we have...
It's the Battle Rage.
All right, and now that is the Dwarf one, and you mentioned them briefly when we talked about armor.
They gain the ability to use spiked armor, so it's spiked armor as they can use it as a weapon. They can use their body, like a body check or like a shoulder shove as an attack. As a weapon, they can, if they grapple someone, they can deal damage because they're wearing spikes. So it's like, haha, meet Mr. Poke.
They turn to Macho Man Randy Savage, dropping elbow drops everywhere.
Pretty much. Now, the only problem with spiked is that it does give you an AC of 14 plus your Dex mod. So that's why you don't really need the unarmored defense, because it's a base of 14 plus Dex. So you can still technically, if you level up Dex, get to a 19, which is pretty good. It does give you disadvantage on stealth checks, though. But if you're a barbarian...
You tend not to care about stealth.
You don't really stealth if you're a barbarian.
So
they usually throw you into the fray of everything.
And
while
if
everyone
you
else
do
stealths.
and if you do stealth, then you're pretty gosh darn lucky that you were.
Yeah.
At higher levels they get different. They get an augmented reckless attack. They can do a charge attack. They can take a double dash pretty much as a bonus action. So they're more of. Think of a powerful dwarf with spikes, and that's pretty much the Battle Rager. Okay. As they can use their weapon as well as their body as a human spike ball.
All right. So next we have the Storm Herald. Yeah. Now this is one that I currently use for Sorn in our current I almost said cosplay campaign.
Oh God, I'm doing this wrong.
There's no campaign; it's just a cosplay every Friday.
Yay! So the Storm Herald is an interesting one in which you take on some of the aspects of certain terrains
or the storms that are associated with those terrains.
Right. So you have the desert, you have the sea, you have the tundra.
Sandstorm, real storm. Snowstorm.
Yeah. So, so the desert, I believe, is fire damage. Yep. Sea is lightning, and then tundra is
terrain.
Ice.
It's an ice thing, but it locks down terrain.
Oh, okay.
Oh, so you essentially freeze.
You gain temporary hit points.
You gain temporary, and then later levels you can freeze people in their tracks.
Yeah. That's right. We talked about
the fire one. Is if you're believing you're going to be soloing in an area and your friends are going to be out doing other things, the fire one's the way to go, because anybody who walks within your rage aura, because this is where doing the Storm Herald you get an aura that gives you an ability while you rage. Fire, the desert is if you're in there you take a heat damage. Lightning is if you're there the person can choose to zap. And
within 5 feet, so at a certain level it becomes 10 feet. And then, like you said, tundra locks people in place.
Yes, so that's where the difference is. Because the fire you can't pick who gets hit and who doesn't.
Right. So again, with the Storm Herald, again, it's the current one I use. I use the Herald of the Sea, or the Storm of the Sea.
You use the Storm Soul. You're at the Storm of the Sea. Yes.
Right.
So the Chicken of the Sea is the Storm
and
of
of course, this is where with these ones you can get random bonuses as well that kind of deal with it. Like for the sea. At a certain point, you can breathe underwater. Yep. Yeah. Like you said with the tundra, you start off with extra hit points. but then you gain the ability to lock people in place and things like that.
And you don't take cold damage.
Right.
And you have like desert, for instance, fire.
Right.
And you don't get heat exhaustion, so if your party's walking around the desert, you can just be like, dope, and they're like...
So it's definitely something that has a little bit more of the quirkiness to it. It's less to do with like helping your rage and more of just almost like quirks that can kind of help you as a character.
And I think sometimes it even definitely plays into your backstory, too. I mean, especially with yours,
Sorn,
any of these you can make work with your backstory.
Right. It was one of those things where, like, with Sorn, my Goliath barbarian, since he's a follower of Thor, choosing the Storm Herald made the most sense because of the lightning and all the lore going on there.
So he just sits there and he's like, Thor, and then lightning.
And then he's sparking and everything like that. Versus my Loxodon barbarian would probably be more of the Tundra kind of thing.
Yep. That would make sense.
Right, and those make sense for them. I mean, granted, I could go in other directions. Like, we can go in, like, Sorn could have been a Berserker, which we'll talk about here in a second.
Yeah.
And it would have made just as much sense. But, of course, this is, again, when you're adding, as Brandon says, a little bit of spice.
A little bit of spice to that life.
Yeah. So, where I didn't want to go with the classic, just mindless Rager, it made the most sense to kind of go with the Storm Herald and give them a little bit of flavor. So that's definitely something to consider. What do we have...
Path of the Berserker would be the next one.
Now, Berserker is usually what I think of when I think of a classic barbarian.
This is the barbarian go-to if you want just that mild spice and you don't want to, singe your mouth too much. Berserker is the way to go. It's the easiest breakdown because it pretty much is your brain just goes, dormant and your eyes go red pretty much, and you just bloodlust. You just hit. You just hit on.
Yeah.
You like at third level, you have frenzy. You make a single melee attack as a bonus action on each of your turns after this one. So pretty much you can go hit as a bonus, and it does the same thing rather than having to wait. But you do get exhausted from that. That's one thing you don't from other rages. You don't get tired, which we'll talk about it, like exhaustion and things like that later on. Level 6 is mindless rage. Pretty much people can't get in your brain. You have advantage on being charmed or frightened. So you're going to be like, stop attacking me. You're going to be like,
attack! You said attack!
You can't be frightened because...
Attack! I said attack!
Intimidating presence, though, gives you the ability to frighten everyone around you.
Because I said attack!
And then retaliation pretty much lets you use a reaction. Just go, pap!
Yeah.
I said attack!
Pretty much. Like I said, it's the
most bread and butter classic barbarian experience.
Just hit. Yeah. All you do is hit and hit better and have the chance to not hit because people are in your brain.
All right. So next we have the Totem Warrior.
Totem Warrior, which is probably my favorite.
The Totem Warrior is very fascinating. It's up there with the Storm Herald as being the one that gives the most flavor and a more variety of benefits.
Especially at later levels when you can... We'll get to that when you can mix.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, again, with the Totem, like this, similar to the Herald, the Storm Herald, you almost get to pick more of the direction that you want to go in.
Right.
So you pick essentially a totem animal to kind of mimic to some degree, to the point where you even start to gain features of the animals you choose.
And when you also at third level, you gain Spirit Seeker. So the Totem Warrior, if you want like the most like link to real world things that are Native Americans, like they have a connection with the earth, with nature, and this is what that barbarian does. They just connect with nature and they feel it within them, and they utilize that. It's not like a druid though, because they can't cast spells. They just harness the raw power of nature and then just
yeah. So technically it is they do gain the beast sense and speak with animal spells, but it's not
they
like
can't use it.
It's not like a nature magic. It's more of like you are almost beast-like in sort of like a kin type way.
Yeah, you're
like kin to beast.
I speak to a wolf because I'm one with the wolf, and I just kin.
And there's different totems. Some of them that you can find only in the. Some of them that you were going to talk to you about, you would have to kind of look around for in D&D Beyond because they come from other books besides the Player's Handbook.
Right.
So the first one is the bear, which basically resistance to all damage except psychic. So the only one that gets in your head is psychic. The next one is the eagle, which basically other people have disadvantage on opportunity attack rolls, and you can use the dash as a bonus action.
Which is what the Battle Rager gets at a higher level when you get at level 3. So that one's pretty good if you're going to be running around a lot, like going from person to person around the battlefield to try and be like let's say your friend's in danger, you want to get to him. Eagle's pretty good for that.
Yeah. Elk is also a good one for that. It adds 15 feet to your walking speed.
Oh.
Which, I mean, I think barbarians already
they're already at the one
pretty
faster.
nice
What's your walking speed right now?
I think it's 40, right?
Yeah, I'm up there.
So you'd be at 55 while walking?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Tiger, you can add 10 feet to your long jump distance and 3 feet to your high jump.
Which can help get around, like, let's say you're like, okay, I need to get up there. Somebody casting spells from up there.
Yeah. And then the wolf, which is friends within 5 feet of you, basically have advantage on melee attack.
It's what dire wolves and what will they have pack tactics.
Yeah.
Right. So they get advantage on...
You become almost the alpha of the group.
Yep,
at the
and
moment,
you
they
give them
follow your
advantage.
lead.
That one's... My favorite two are the wolf and the bear. For that reason alone.
Yeah.
Because if you want to be the barbarian that's going to be in the fray and your friends are going to be there also, like you're the tension, but they're also there, the wolf is great because let's say you have the barbarians up front and the paladins next to it. Paladin gets advantage, and if you target him, they go whoomp and give you health, and you're still like, we still have advantage in everything we're trying to do here.
So that kind of picking as far as what you want out of the totems is kind of, again, going into how you want to play as your barbarian.
Right.
Are you going to be the straight up tank and choose the bear and be like, everyone try to hit me, I dare you as I smash? Or are you going to be the one that chooses the wolf and is a bit more of like that leader type character?
So let's get in this together and just
it's like, follow my lead,
now,
my brethren.
I think what I really like about the totem spirit is as you go higher levels, you can pick different... So let's say at 3rd level, I want to pick the bear. But let's say at 6th level, I believe, you can pick a different feature based off of another totem. So, and they kind of change.
So you won't get... If you're level 6 and you pick the wolf, you don't get the pack tactics. But you get, like, you can... If you imagine it in your brain like you're actually building a totem within your spirit, you can have a 3-tiered bear totem, which is the feet, the body, and the head. Or you can have the totems that are just the individual faces that make up your totem.
Right, where you can pick and choose which animal.
So it's kind of cool because I think...
It's definitely a very interesting one.
Yeah.
It's definitely one to take a look for. Again, like we said with the Storm Herald, it's definitely got that spice.
Oh, this one's my... As much as I love the Storm Herald.
No, that's fine. Again,
totem is definitely my favorite. The level of spice you can add to be
right. And again, it comes down to the character you're playing. Like if I wasn't doing the Storm Herald because of the totem would have been a very great choice because I don't really, as much as I love barbarians so much for their simplicity, their ease of play, and then they have some of these things that are great. Because I wouldn't want to play like the berserker because it's so straightforward.
Basic.
Yeah.
No, there's some people that prefer playing that kind of character.
There's nothing wrong with them. They just
it's the traditional.
Yeah.
And that's why I chose Storm Herald because it made sense for the character I was playing. Whereas like we've interacted with other barbarians that were Path of the Totem, and it was, and there are definitely other interesting characteristics to it. So let's see, is that all of
the last one is the Path of the Zealot. Now, this is kind of like Paladin Light.
Yeah.
Yes. That's a good way to put it.
This is Paladin Light. So, like, let's say that you want to play a barbarian who fights for his god, but you don't really want to play a paladin.
This was almost something that I could have done.
And at 3rd level with this, you get Divine Fury, which basically allows you to channel extra damage into
a specific
your weapon.
type of damage.
So it's either necrotic or radiant.
So depending on what your deity is, it would make sense for which one it would be. You wouldn't be like, I'm for Paylor, here's necrotic, like that. It would be like, wait a minute.
Hold on a second.
Now the downside, I mean, it can be a downside. The downside of this is if you, like, let's say that you were to die, basically a spell like Raise the Dead could restore you back to life, and the caster doesn't need any material components to cast the spell.
Which is good.
So they could basically be like, you're not dead anymore, more or less.
Pretty much. So that's good for the party. Bad for if someone's trying to take control of you.
Yeah.
I mean, you still have your own brain. You're back to life, so no one can take over your brain. But let's say you're like captured and they're trying to get information from you. They could just kill you and bring you back and kill you, bring you back without wasting anything.
Right.
So it's a double-edged sword for that one. But I mean, it's a fun double-edged sword. No
Right.
matter what side.
I mean, and like Sam put it definitely has the feeling of like Paladin Light because you now have a much more direct reason for your rage, for your direction of your character and everything.
Yeah, I mean, you could have just for example, you could have very easily picked this one and then made Thor your
and that
your
was definitely something
that
Brent and I had talked about at one point, but we still felt the Storm Herald was a better direction.
Oh, I agree, because then you get lightning damage.
Yes, I get to spark and zap.
Yep. If you would have picked this one, that would have been a lot more. You already talked to Thor a lot, but this would make it even more a reason to talk to Thor.
Right. I mean, because again, it's I didn't want Soren to so focus on the gods as much, because I know especially with paladins and even some like clerics and stuff, you have a character like everything they do is they talk to their god, they fight. They talk to their god, they fight. They fight for the name of their god, and I didn't want Soren to fall into the trap of, even with like a zealot, it'd be like, everything I do is for my gods. Like, everything I do is for me, more or less. I just do hope that it honors my gods.
Yeah. I mean, I guess my favorite part about the zealot is level 14, the rage beyond death.
Yeah.
Even if you're knocked unconscious, like when you're raging, 0 hit points doesn't make you unconscious. You still make death saving throws and suffer normal effects of taking damage while at 0 hit points. However, if you were to die due to failing death saving throws, you don't die until your rage ends. So at higher level, when you have the never-ending rage, until somebody makes you stop raging, you technically don't die. You don't do anything. You're just raging pile of flesh on the ground, but you're not dead.
But we're going to heal.
It gives the cleric a little bit extra time to be
like, okay, I'm gonna heal the spellcaster so we can do another fireball. Then I'll get over here.
Right. All right. So which path do we want Dave to take?
If I had my choice, it'd be Totem Warrior.
You'd say Totem Warrior.
See, I'd almost say Berserker.
I'd almost agree. I
kind of
want to Dave the Berserker.
He is trying to be a giant, and giants are totems.
All right. So,
giants are made of totems.
At 4th level, because we're making this a 5th level Barbarian, you do get an ability and score improvement.
Or feat.
We have not rolled our ability scores yet, so do we want to just...
You go, and I'll keep the track of these, and...
See, I would say, because normally with us, we like to alternate between ability score, then feat, and go vice versa, for the most part. So I would probably still start with an ability score, and I'd bump up the, as we've talked about with...
Let's start with Strength and Constitution. We'll see what we roll, and if we need to make adjustments, we can. Also, at 5th level, you get an extra attack, so you attack twice, which is pretty nice. And then you also get an increase in your walking speed by 10 feet.
Oh, for 5th level,
For 5th level.
Which is...
pretty nice.
Which is why I already moved.
So now we're going to roll for our ability scores.
First one's at 12.
First one's not great.
Well, having that in intelligence wouldn't be bad. 9.
Okay.
That's intelligence.
That's intelligence.
Ooh.
That one's pretty good.
15.
15. All right.
Pretty solid start. Ooh. 14. How many? We got 2 more?
2 more. Math. 13.
That's 13. Yes.
All right. One more.
And 13.
13.
Hey, not bad.
So the nice thing about being a human is that right off the bat you get a +1 to everything. So that means our lowest stat, even at 9, will not give us a negative modifier because we have a +1.
This is why I never pick humans for barbarians, but that's because I prefer to have the look of a barbarian, but not the basic action of a barbarian.
So our 2 highest are 15, 14.
So let's put strength at the 15?
Yes.
Strength at the 15.
Con the 14.
What's our next one? 13?
2 13.
Put 1 in dex.
That's what I was thinking.
Let's make him charismatic.
So
put the other 13 in charisma.
Yep. 12 in wisdom.
Yep.
And then the 9 in intelligence, which gives us overall strength at 17, dex at 14, con at 14, intelligence at 10, wisdom and charisma both at 14. So overall, not horrible.
Not bad.
Could be better, but not bad.
I mean, we still have more levels to go, which you can improve your abilities to.
Right.
Exactly.
Your goal is to get at least strength.
Now we've made a character that's level 5, but we should really talk about things that come later on in the barbarian path.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Because again, we could probably use Dave at a later point, but again, just as a quick rundown for things that you can get in the rest of your barbarian class. I mean, because at 6 you get another path feature again that chooses as far as your primal path.
Which the berserker at level 6 gets the mindless rage, which means you can't be charmed, you can't be charmed or frightened while raging. Pretty much, if you're charmed or frightened, and then go into your rage, it cancels it, or it suspends it until your rage is over.
Right.
So let's say you're charmed by someone, they're like, don't attack me, and you go, all right, rage at someone else, and you go, wait a minute, get over here. So, and you can't, I mean, the reason why that's so good for frightened is if you're running away and you rage, you can be like, I'm not scared anymore, go back at him.
Yeah. Right, and this is the same thing again. It all changes depending on the path that you've chosen. Whereas
I'm talking about Dave.
Right, as far as Dave goes, I mean, like for Soren, it was where he found out he could breathe underwater.
Oh, cool.
But I mean, he hasn't found that out yet.
No,
this
he
is
has
where
not
we
gone
found out
underwater.
that he could.
Yes.
Okay, so then going up at like level 7, you have like Feral Instinct,
Which gives you advantage on initiative rolls. If you are surprised during a beginning of combat, instead of because in surprise you don't actually initiative happens, but if you're surprised in initiative, your turn is just skipped. But when you get this, your turn is not skipped. You pretty much ignore being surprised and you go, I'm going to go anyways.
You at level 9, you're getting things like Brutal Critical.
Oh, it's so good.
And again, this is where you start, like a lot of these things is where you start to see the real benefit of having a Barbarian, especially if you're a beginner player. Like, this is a lot of times when we talk to someone who's like, I have no idea what I'm doing, what should I do? It was like, well, do you just want to hit things? They're like, yeah, here's a Barbarian. Here's a good couple of reasons why. And Brutal Criticals, I believe, like you, is a great reason to have a Barbarian. Now, I haven't even experienced it yet, but I know I'm waiting
And
for
2
it.
levels, right?
Yes.
So Brutal Critical is, generally when you critical, you roll your damage dice. So let's say you're attacking with a D12. You roll 2 D12, add them together. When you do Brutal Critical, you roll 3 D12. And then at 13th level, because
for Brutal Critical, you get 2 die.
Yeah, so you just add more and more and more and more. So pretty much you're just roll, like, at the end of it, you should have 5, right?
Yes, because at level
Critical,
17, you get 3 extra die.
Yeah, critical, 9, 13. Yeah, you're on 5 damage die.
For a critical, yeah.
So theoretically, you could get 5 12 and just be like, cleave.
Yes. You have more path features. You have Relentless Rage at level 11.
Which is the ability to, while raging, you can make a Constitution saving throw with a DC of 10. And if you're going to go down to 0 hit points, you stay at 1.
You power yourself through
every time you use this feature before you get a rest, the DC goes up by 5.
Right.
So 10, 15, 20. So basically, by the 3rd time you're using it, unless you're really lucky, you're probably going to go down.
Right. I mean, again, you'll see at like level 13, you get the 2 extra die for Brutal Critical. You get more path features as you continue to go up, more ability scores. You get Persistent Rage at level 15.
Which is where, when you have the Path of the Zealot, you can just not end your rage, because it says your rage doesn't end when you fall unconscious. So, and you can't die then. So
you're just a screaming mess on the ground. Like, God, like, Dave, we're fighting here. Quiet down. Indomitable Might comes at level 18.
Pretty much, you can, if you're rolling a strength check, but it ends up being, let's say you roll a 2, it's going to equal less than your strength, not your strength modifier, your strength score. So by level 18, your strength score will probably be 20. So what you can do is you go, I'm not going to roll a check. I just want to succeed, unless you want to try and get a critical success. But that is where your strength being at 20 is like, I'm going to push this boulder. Are you sure about that? I pushed the boulder.
I didn't ask you. I told you I was going to do it. And then, of course, and when you get to level 20, as you get with most of these classes, you get a very...
that extra spice!
With Barbarians, it's Primal Champion, which I'm sure Brandon's just dying to tell us about.
You get a +4 to your strength and constitution. So if you build your character right and you make that strength a 20 and that constitution 20 before you hit level 20, they go to 24, which then makes your modifier a +7. So on most things, if it's a DC 10, you have to roll a 1 or a 2 to fail it. It's fantastic as a player to be like, I'm going to succeed this. There's nothing stopping me. And then someone does a wisdom thing, and then you're mind controlled. And then the group's like, wait.
Oh no! This is backfiring. Now that we've talked about a lot of the stuff that comes with being a barbarian, one thing that we should mention though is like when you have the ability to rage, it is usually limited. Depending on your levels. So like levels 1 through 1 and 2, you only get to rage twice per long rest. Level 3 through 5, you could do 3 rages. Levels 6 through 11, 4 rages. 12 through 16, you do 5 rages. 17 through 19, you can do 6 rages. And then at level 20, you can rage.
You can just stay in a constant... Literally, that's what I've played with players that when we did like a level 20 fun game. They're like, I'm just going to rage all the time. And the DM was like, why? And they go, because I can. Nothing's stopping me from just being constantly angry.
That's my secret.
I'm always angry. Pain and green.
So that's kind of an overview of how the leveling up. So let's go with Dave. And we'll do his background real quick, so then we can get to stuff like what equipment you kind of get as a barbarian.
So for Dave, for his background, there are many backgrounds, but I'm thinking an Outlander probably works
he's
for
in the
Dave.
Right.
Grew up in the wilds, far from civilization. So he gets a bonus skill proficiency, either acrobatics, animal handling, arcana, deception, history, insight, investigation, medicine, nature, perception, performance, persuasion, religion, sleight of hand, or stealth.
This is a lot of things.
Yeah.
I think because... Now, this is where we can either we can compile, because we picked...
Right.
Which things? Perception
We picked athletics and intimidation.
So is intimidation on one of those?
No.
And
But he also gets a skill. He also gets survival as a skill proficiency.
So
that's probably a good thing.
Well, if you had made this a proficiency, I don't think it doubles the proficiency. So I think it just would
take it away.
Yeah,
that's right.
So
many
I'm
rules.
thinking maybe like
Nature.
Yeah,
Nature seems like.
I don't cut down that tree. That tree, my friend. What? Don't ask questions.
Tree, nice. You also get a tool proficiency, so you get a musical instrument.
Do we have to have a musical instrument?
We have to have a musical instrument.
Give him a drum.
Just,
I'm in the woods.
And he also gets an additional language. So we had him speak giant.
How about dwarven?
Yeah, that works.
Dwarven.
Because he's in the mountains a lot, he probably runs into a few dwarves.
Yes.
Hey, friends. How do you learn a language? I just hear you talking a lot.
I figured this was hello. And this is the sentence
This is
that
also
explains
where
this.
you kind of pick your characteristics.
What do I gotta roll?
Let's see, a D8. We like to roll for characteristics
Because it just adds a little more fun.
It's a great thing if you're really indecisive as far as those kind of things go, which we've discussed before in the character development.
So your first one is you are driven by wanderlust that led me away from home, and you get 2 of those.
After his wife left him.
He was.
And your second one is I am always picking things up, absently fiddling with them, and sometimes accidentally breaking them.
That sounds right.
Which, by the way, if I ever get on the characteristics, I usually pick that one because it's fun.
Ah, crap!
Next one's a D6 for ideals.
4.
That's 4. Might, the strongest are meant to rule.
Makes sense.
Which is also...
Fates are on our side.
Bond's a D6.
What?
Number 1, my family, clan, or tribe is the most important thing in my life, even when they are far from me.
That's perfect, because his wife left him, so he's trying to become more giant-like to get her back.
All right, and another D6.
For flaws.
5. Violence is my answer to almost any challenge.
Yep.
Sounds like a good day.
Man, we've made this Dave perfect.
Alrighty, so Dave is what? Probably a chaotic good?
I'm thinking chaotic neutral.
Chaotic neutral. He's like, I'll beat up anything.
That's
except for my wife.
Yeah.
I love her.
He doesn't really.
Deirdre, come back.
This is the nice thing I like about this. He doesn't really need a faith. You can give him a faith. I mean, it probably wouldn't make too much sense to have a barbarian worship certain things.
His whatever weapon. Well, I'm gonna have him use an axe.
Yeah.
And he's we're gonna make him squalid.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Poor barbarian.
He's not aristocratic.
All right. So
I live in a house made of trees that I cut down.
So this is also where you can get into descriptions. I don't think we really need to get into that right now. So the
Brown
next
hair,
up
brown
would be
brown hair, brown eyes, tall, muscular,
So the next up would be equipment.
Handsome. Equipment. Okay, so
Axe.
as far as equipments go, I mean, you can usually start. The classic thing to start with is a great axe. The most common thing you see with barbarians is like you have a problem, apply axe directly to head.
Head on.
Basically works.
So you can start with either a great axe or any other kind of martial melee weapon.
I want to have axe because
we're
he's
gonna
been out in the world.
Yes, so he would have an axe. And then you can have a choice between like 2 hand axes or another simple weapon.
Is that a secondary option?
Secondary option would be there's any simple weapon or 2 hand axes.
I think just what's better than 1 axe? 3 axes.
3 axes sounds great.
So he's got the 2 hand axes and the great axe.
You also get an explorer's pack and 4 javelins.
Ooh, javelins.
And then
that's how I got javelins.
Because you're an outlander, you get a staff, a hunting trap, a trophy from an animal you killed,
It's a deer butt.
traveler's clothes, and 10 gold.
Just the butt of a deer.
So we'll go ahead and add that equipment on there.
Okay.
That's how I normally make my characters. The first thing that comes to mind, I go, if that's what my brain wanted, is what it gets.
If that's what my brain decided, it's what he
The
gets.
deer butt.
And we now have our character. We
have
made-
Dave the
We
Barbarian.
have made Dave, and I will actually,
Copyright.
I will show you guys Dave, just so that way you can kind of get an idea of what it's going to look like on D&D Beyond here.
D&D Beyond.
So this is our Dave.
Well,
Oh, you can't see that. So as you can kind of see, he's got an armor class of 14, 40 feet walking speed, plus 3 proficiency bonus. There's his stats. You know, so it's kind of a nice looking Dave there. I think we've made a pretty decent
he has an
barbarian.
AC of 14. What's his dex?
His dex is 14. He's
So
plus 2
Yeah,
dex.
and his constitution is plus 2, right?
Plus 3 because he got... Oh, no, yeah, plus 2.
So, okay. So that's why I was like, his AC is low, but that's
Yes.
because it's stuff
So
modifier and all that.
we had rolled stats a little bit better,
But that's not up to us.
it's not up to us.
I mean, Grant, we could have done a second set, but...
Yeah.
We're now weirdly lit.
Oh, because it's...
Readjust! Oh, well.
Anyway, so that is kind of our barbarian.
All right. So I think what we need to come down to is that we've built a barbarian. We've kind of talked about how it goes when we level up. So to kind of finish off, I think we should kind of just briefly talk about why we think a barbarian is a good option, especially for in general, as well as for a newer player. Now, I've mentioned. I mean, I just like barbarians partially because I like the simplicity of them. As a player, I'm very much into the role playing. But I'm very much focused as far as I don't like being like, well, I need to make sure I have high health and high this, but I also want to do spells. It gets too complicated for me. I like being able to say, I have plenty of health and I can hit hard. And I only have like, Tristan, go hit that thing. And I'm like, all right, you got it. Bop! And I'm like, cool. I have a single focus and I know what I'm doing.
Bop him.
Right.
Bop it.
Well, it's one of those things where I always have an issue and especially because you can level those up pretty evenly. Like when I play like an actual like RPG, like video game or something, when you have a skill tree, I always run into the issue of trying to like level up everything evenly, but then you run out of points eventually and you don't master anything.
Master of none.
Right. So with a barbarian, it definitely gives me much more focus. So I believe very firmly that for a new player, that's a great reason to start with a barbarian. Not to say things like monk or rogue are bad options as well, but if you're looking for someone who's really trying to get into it and they're just like, what do I do? And you're like, do you just want to point at something and hit it? And they're like, yeah, barbarian is usually one of the best choices. Like, just go, would you like to rage? And they're like, I would like to rage! and then they go hit something. It's great, and also the simplicity for like kids as well, I imagine, especially depending on how young you start them with. If you're just like, all right, Timmy, what do you want to do? I want to rage! Alrighty, I want to hit that thing! Well, you can certainly try, young man.
So, I mean, I like barbarians whenever I play them because my whole goal is to get... I mean, I am like the stereotypical... I like to add the spice to the totem warrior, but my whole goal is to get so strong that I can go up to, not like every enemy, but go up to a goblin and just be like, hello, goodbye, hello, goodbye.
And I've never played a barbarian. I have a couple of barbarian NPCs. Only one that you guys have met so far in my campaign. But they seem like they're fun.
They are.
I mean, you've watched me play a barbarian for over a year at this point. You've seen us interact with some of Brandon's NPCs. I mean, as part as a role, because we talked about power balance in groups and stuff.
Right.
I imagine you would argue that everyone should have someone who's at least a barbarian or something similar as far as like
barbarian, fighter, paladin,
hit
some
hard.
sort of tank-like creature. I mean, here's what I will say. When I first started playing, there were certain categories I didn't want to fall into. I was very hesitant about playing something like a barbarian because, for me, I felt like we had kind of talked a little bit about the stereotypes. They were too much. I break door with head, and then that was it.
Well, granted, that's my fault because in our first campaign that we ever did, I played a dwarf barbarian,
which was funny.
Who headbutted doors,
which was funny, but but after kind of seeing you play Soren a little bit, there's a little bit more barbarians, and it's all about how you play them.
Right,
Not
that's
every
the biggest
barbarian
thing.
is dumb.
Right, this is definitely one of those things where a lot of it comes down to how you play.
However, if I ever did play a barbarian, I would probably have to be pretty dumb.
I think what it comes down to is a lot of people choose to do the barbarian because they're tired of playing the smarter characters at this point. Because you have a lot of people that go into this going, I want to play the rogue, I want to play the wizard, I want to go and play the sorcerer.
Or a wizard.
Right, so you're going to run into the times where people are just tired of, like, I'm tired of sitting in the back, I'm tired of, not being able to hit anything hard with my actual melee weapon when something attacks
Tired
me.
of going down every battle.
I'm tired of being in charge. Because you're going to burst in.
I want the blood spray on my face.
There's also the bloodlust. Yes, bloodlust. But you're going to run into people who want to be that stereotype character. Because like you've already said, like if you were to play a barbarian, you'd want to be that.
I probably would.
Whereas I like the mechanics of a barbarian, I like the culture of a barbarian, but I don't want to necessarily play that super stereotype, which is why Soren is so dramatically different than when people think of a barbarian. Yeah. It's almost to the point where he's almost a fighter or a in some degree a monk in some aspects.
The stoicness of a monk, the sure brawn and bloodlust of a barbarian.
Yeah.
He was not that stoic. He's got the brashness of the fighter. And
you're pretty stoic. Let's
stoic.
not beat around the stoic bush here. out of the party, you are like the golden child.
I am, yes. I'm the face.
There's something to be said when your party's barbarian is the
face of the group. when the barbarian in the group is the lawful good alignment, that is terrifying.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, like we've kind of mentioned though, a lot of the times in encounters, we'll probably say this with every class that we bring up. Whatever you choose, it comes down to how you play it.
Yeah.
You do not have to stick to the stereotypes, and again, we'll bring this up. With barbarians, you don't have to be the mindless thing that hits
you could
things.
Be a timid barbarian who's like, oh, I don't want to hurt people. I don't want. And then when you go into a rage, be like, I gotta kill.
or you go into a rage and you hit things and you apologize.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I don't mean to do this. Please forgive me.
Or you can make it your whole goal to just collect scalps.
It could be that you're a barbarian that refuses to fight until it's absolutely necessary.
More violence.
Right. I mean, you could do it any way you want. And of course, this is where like the different primal paths play a big role. I mean, because even if you pick the more like traditional, let's say you pick the berserker, you don't have to play again the mindless, hitting machine. You could be a berserker who's more tactful. It could be a very, a military-esque barbarian. Yeah. You could be coming
attack the right flank, attack the left flank,
and I'll charge down the middle as a distraction. And I mean, so a lot of it comes down to the background you're choosing, the character you're developing. Because you'll run into the same thing with, I'm sure when we talk about rogues at some point, not everybody wants to play the slinky...
the sling slonk, bink bonker. You want to be... Some people want to be...
Or the edgy... Because that's the thing, with everyone starts to fall into those pitfalls, is where with barbarians, they play the mindless hitter. Rogues are like the
edgelords.
Are the edgelords.
Druids are the hippies.
Druids are the hippies. The wizards are the...
bookworms.
The bookworms. Sorcerers are stuck up and, and things like that. So I mean, you can use some of these aspects to you. You could be a fairly, just something that hits first and asks questions later. Or you could be more thoughtful and be more tactful. So again, a lot of it comes down to how you decide to play. This is much more of like an overview of how a barbarian can work for you. But I mean, this is where you have such an opportunity in a game to go on the path that you decide to go to.
Go down your own primal path.
And And again, things evolve over time because we've talked about before about how when I started playing Sorn as a barbarian, my thought was I was going to go into it as more of the stereotype. Even with stuff like with the following of Thor, I was like, oh, he'll go into this like a mindless Viking who just wants to fight and gore and blah, blah, blah. But then the more I played it, the more the character developed and the more I became less of that. Even in the beginning, like I went into the thought process of doing that, but I didn't even play that because it didn't feel natural for the character. Yeah. I ended up playing like I was Thor from the Marvel Cinematic Universe more than anything else.
And I think there's something to be said for that. I think sometimes you don't play the character plays you. So
and that's such a great point because, again, this is a role-playing game. Right. And the goal is to escape reality and let that character become... real in the situation that you're doing.
Sword's real. He's real.
He's right here. You don't see him. Oh god.
Hey guys, we're gonna be right back.
Oh no, this isn't going well at all. And again, feel free to push any kind of norms out of the way. Because again, you see again such things like the battle axe is such a big thig. I went with a hammer instead.
I would love to see a barbarian who just like tries to use like a little rapier or something. Like he's just like big Goliath barbarian, little tiny sword.
Well, it'd be a big old rapier, just like it's a large rapier,
little tiny sword.
Okay.
Well, I mean, because then you could run.
He uses it like a toothpick.
Depending on what you do with it, like you could do two-handed fighting, and it's where you can put your big battle axe away, and you have the two hand axes, and that's exclusively what you use. Run around with two hand axes raising around.
Little tiny sword.
Just daggers.
And let me just good.
Or your yikwas.
That's only if you're Goliath, though. Generally, a rapier would still be the size of a rapier in your hand.
Right, as opposed to like me, where my yik was a boot knife versus a throwing half spear.
Yeah.
But yeah, so again, we'll again mention probably every time we talk about a class or a character creation is what you make of it, not what the parameters are there. Always talk to your DM if there's something that you want to change or tweak, or even if you find a homebrew, like as far as like subclasses and stuff like that go, that fit more of the character you're trying to make. Again, talking to your DM is always the best option. Even if you just tweak something slightly, like there's a homebrew race called the Soul Stitch, which are essentially Frankenstein's monsters. And I know I've talked to both of you as DMs if I were to try and play that because I really like the kind of things. If I wanted to do...
I'm not that evil.
Sam would torment me. Like, if I were to do it, I would probably do a barbarian, but I would want to do a tweak on the Ancestral Guardian, where instead of Ancestral Guardians, it would be the different races, different bodies,
body parts. Like this is a dwarf's arm, and this is an elf's leg.
Right, essentially, and where instead of ancestral guardians that pop out, it would be the spirits of the bodies that assemble me.
Oh, what the hell, man!
I know.
What did you do to my eyes?
It's like I didn't do this.
It's a nice butt, though.
And
there's an elf over there, like thanks.
And of course that's where I would want to try and homebrew something where certain aspects of the ancestral guardians would be tweaked to like instead of like maybe certain benefit of them, I could be like, hey, instead of that, can I do it so that twice between every short rest I can roll for advantage on a skill check to see if maybe a body part ancestral thing is...
Do you know anything about this?
It's like, hey, Arm, do you know how to play the lute? Bling! Oh, crap, I do! Yeah!
Just remember, everything comes with a price.
Everything comes with a price. Especially with... anything with DMs comes with a price. You ask for it, you'll be sorry for it.
Oh, yes. Very sorry.
Can I do this? Sure. You're boned. Right?
I'm going to jump over the wall.
Sure. I'm sure you are. Go on ahead and roll that with disadvantage.
More of the reason I'm thinking of is, I want a fancy tattoo. Okay, cool. It's cursed. Oh no! This is not what I signed up for.
That's what you got.
It's what you get. So I think that's about it for as far as barbarians go. Unless anyone else has anything else, or
nope.
I think just say I think we've beat it with the axe enough.
Beat that dead horse.
Beat the dead horse.
Jump on the dead horse. I mean. So that's about it for barbarians for this. Again, we are planning on talking more about the other races and other classes as well, and trying to give at least a kind of an introduction to it, to kind of help you if you're still trying to figure out what to do. But until the next time we talk about it, we will see you guys next week. And again, feel free to follow us on all of our social medias. If you have any suggestions for what you want to see, feel free to let us know in the comments or to hit us up on any of the social medias. And we'll be sure to read them and take a look and see if we can help you guys out with anything. All right. So until next time, D10tion dismissed.